Welcome to the London Free Press Podcast. I'm your host, Rachel Gilbert. Londoners are facing a tax hike of 3.4% next year, which is an election year for our local city council. So today I'm talking with London Free Press City Hall reporter Jack Moulton about how we got to that number. Hey, Jack, how are you?
I'm good, Rachel. Good to talk budget again.
Good to talk, but I know you've been really busy this week. You've had lots of meetings and long meetings to attend. Budget time's a big time of year at City Hall for sure. So the tax hike is sitting at 3.4% as of the final deliberation meeting. That hasn't been officially approved yet. But what does that actually mean for people? What does that mean for the average homeowner?
Yeah, so 3.4% is what they've arrived at as of the end of talks on Thursday, the 20th. As you mentioned, they still have to approve it on a meeting on the 26th, but barring any last minute theatrics or a big foo-for-ah, this is probably what it's going to be.
Okay.
So 3.4% represents about 51, a little more than 51 bucks uh, per $100,000 in assessed value on your home. Now, important that it's assessed value, not market value. That's a big
Okay.
distinction to make every year. Uh, Not to mention, assessed or property assessments have been frozen by the province since 2016. That's still the case for this coming year, I believe.
Okay.
So just something to keep in mind. But as
So
of
just
now,
just to,
51 bucks.
okay. So if you can sell your house for, say $800,000, that doesn't mean it's 51 times 8. It's whatever the assessed value is. Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay. So at the beginning of this final meeting, the tax hike was 3.6%. We got it down to 3.4. So what things were cut? What things were moved around to get us, down that 0.2%?
Yeah, so not a whole lot of change as is evident, but
Mm-hmm.
the biggest change that council made was actually spearheaded by Councillor Stevenson and the mayor, and it was an interesting maneuver. They took $4.8 million, which from this year's surplus, 2025, was going to be set aside into a development charge reserve fund. So development charges being, the fees that developers pay when they want to build something so that they can help fund, the water and sewer connections, that kind of thing to actually, build. Readers may remember that the province brought in development charge exemptions on certain types of things, nonprofit housing, purpose-built rentals, that sort of thing to try and spur the market a little bit. The problem came when the province didn't really set aside any money for the cities to be able to do that. And so for a while, London was doing that from our property taxes. That was costing a pretty penny. And so readers may also remember earlier this year, Mayor Josh Morgan came out and said, with a letter from the province saying that cities did not have to backfill those exemptions.
Mm.
And so that, brought with it some immediate relief on property taxes. And so coming back to, budget deliberations, $4.8 million from the surplus this year was destined to go towards that. It
Okay.
hasn't been done yet. I mean, the year's not over yet, and this
Mm.
is a forecast. But they basically just took that and applied it to lower the tax rate this year. And so that brought it down about zero point 0.3 percentage points.
Okay.
Uh, it got back up to 3.4 mainly due to a pitch by council that was endorsed to bring back free 2 hour on-street parking in the downtown and Old East Village, Midtown, the core area,
Mm-hmm.
which came at a cost of about $780,000 annually,
Okay.
which they're planning to take against property taxes. So that bumped it. That, with a couple other things, bumped it back up a bit.
Up by point one. Yeah.
Point one,
Okay.
roughly. Yeah.
Okay. So this reduction this year down to 3.4 means that we're likely going to, and we forecasted to have a 1% tax increase at least in 2028. So can you explain how that is working how does that work? Why does a cut this year mean we have at least a 1% raise in 2028?
Yeah, so I've seen a lot of feedback from readers and Londoners at large about if the city is posting these massive surpluses for the past couple of years now,
Mm-hmm.
why not give that back to Londoners in some way? And that's essentially what the city is doing. Again, readers may remember earlier this year. Council voted to take a piece of the surplus from last year, which was almost like $60 million, take about a little more than 8 million per year and apply it to lower taxes this year and in 2027.
Mm,
That was the big one because that shaved basically about a percentage point off the tax hike in each year.
okay.
And then this latest maneuver to use more surplus funding from this development charge fiasco.
Yeah. Yep.
This is one-time money. The city's not guaranteed to have a surplus this year, or excuse me, every year.
Right.
And it comes in at varying levels each year. So they're basically taking one-time money to, as they refer to it, basically artificially depress taxes. Because come next year, or in this case, 2 years, uh, that money's gone. And so you have to fill that hole somehow.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, according to city staff at Thursday's meeting, all of this together, which I believe also includes another one-time pull from reserve funds to lower taxes, uh, adds up to about a percentage point increase in 2028 in order to fill that hole left behind by one-time money.
I see. Okay. Okay. But the reasoning for that was people need the relief right now.
Exactly. City council's been under a lot of pressure, uh, especially over the last two budget years, where
Mm-hmm.
the tax hike was 8.7%, and then it was 7.3 or zero point 0.4 from memory.
Mm.
That is huge,
Mm-hmm.
especially in comparison to recent years where it was hovering around 2 or 3%. One of the big line items there was the police budget, as we've extensively reported on. But uh, yeah, seemingly this has put a lot of pressure on politicians. People opening up their property tax pamphlet each year and then, wow, what an increase.
Right.
And presumably making it known to their counselors that that isn't okay, and understandably so.
Mm-hmm.
And you heard a lot from counselors Thursday that and even at the public input meeting on Tuesday, where Londoners were sounding off on their what they like, didn't like, want included, want removed from the budget. It was interesting to see out of 21 people, more than half of them didn't really reference anything specific in the budget. It was more or less just sort of a sounding board for their anxiety, their frustrations about affordability in this city.
Mm.
Rising costs of housing, and a couple of them mentioned like successive tax increases, and especially the pressure that puts on fixed income like households and
Sure.
seniors, for example.
Yep.
So yeah, you're hearing a lot about that, and a lot of counselors took that to heart in talks on Thursday, mentioning like we really need to do whatever we can to bring this down.
It seems like because you did mention that in your story a couple of times that counselors reference things. Well, I've heard this, I've heard this. It seems like counselors really are listening to their constituents.
Yeah, I mean that's obviously a feature every year, and
Mm-hmm.
that can cause some ruffled feathers here and there, where maybe politicians highlight some concerns or some priorities from some people and not others.
Mm.
That's a feature every year, but yeah, especially concerns about affordability was
Mm-hmm.
the number one thing that people were talking about, and not to mention. They also threw in about $250,000 annually, both in capital and operating expenses, for traffic calming, and that
Mm.
was more or less directly in response to Queens Park outlawing speed cameras that they allowed, 6 years ago.
Well, there's a
So,
lot of subdivisions that we've heard from Londoners who are they're concerned about their street and people kind of speeding through, areas where kids could be playing or school zones, things like that.
Yeah, and we at the Free Press have done reporting about one particular speed camera. I believe one of them was in the Old South neighborhood that neighbors were petitioning for like the better part of like a year,
Mm,
and they finally got it, and then
hmm.
now it's gone. So yeah, certain elements of public outcry are definitely present here.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so let's talk a little more about the multi-year budget. You mentioned this already. So this is what year are we in now of a 4 year? Because we kind of do 4 years at a time now, although we still have deliberations annually. But what year are we in, and how have we progressed in this multi-year budget in terms of increases?
Right. So right now we're in year three of four out of the multi-year budget. It's 2020. The process works that every 4 years they draft basically a blueprint for those 4 years. Um, but they still revisit it each year. Because things can change throughout the year. Costs
Hmm.
go up, through normal measures like inflation and whatnot, or circumstances change on certain programs, certain agencies. For instance, we've seen a pretty concerted effort from council to try to drive the tax hike down in successive years, and so they're going to different city-funded agencies saying, "Hey, like, what can you make do without?" And even this year alone, the London Police returned about $1.5 million. London Transit brought back about $700,000. I think from police it came from a reserve fund, and from transit it was more gas tax revenue than they were expecting, if memory serves.
Okay.
Um, but yeah, more or less a way to check in with said 4 year blueprint and make changes accordingly.
Okay.
Not to mention, new things may crop up, like totally new things. For instance, last year, there was the funding case for Arcade. That was the big flashpoint issue in
Yeah.
order to get funding for the next 2 years for some of their shelter spaces.
Okay. What were the increases in the year one and two for this multi-year budget? Do you remember offhand?
It was 8.7%
Right.
and about 7.3, I think, last year.
Okay.
Or excuse me, 8.7% in 2024 and 7.3% in for this year.
For 2025. And now for 2026, we're looking at 3.4%.
Mhm.
And we're going into an election year. I mean, that's considerably less than a 7-ish percent increase. Do you think the election has anything to do with that?
Rachel, I don't think it's a coincidence. Of course,
I'm being somewhat facetious, but yes, I get it.
no politician will ever come outright and say like, yeah, of
Sure.
course we lowered this for the election, but
Right.
it tends to be the case that municipal voters, if they show up at all, it's usually a pretty low turnout event.
Yeah.
They tend to have a bit of a short memory and, maybe even just vote for the name they recognize.
Yeah. Do we know who is going to run for reelection, or maybe more importantly, who's not going to run again next year? Have you
Right.
heard at all?
Right now, the only name out of the 15 that is not running again is Councillor Stephen Hillier for Ward 14.
Okay.
Um, I, I had a story a couple weeks ago about the 1 year out from the election and who's running, who's not running.
Hmm.
Councillor Hillier, declined comments saying he'd rather wait until closer to the nomination period when campaigning officially legally begins
Mm.
in May of next year. But he's since posted he sort of let it slip on social media that he wasn't running again.
Okay.
That's the only guaranteed name so far. Besides that, 10 of the 14 counselors have said they're running again, and the Mayor Josh Morgan, has also confirmed he intends to run again.
Okay.
Which, the mayor's race is its own thing. This
Yeah.
is the first time in more than a decade that a London mayor has sought a second term. And right now, the playing field looks fairly open for him. Of course, a year is a long time. We'll see
Yeah.
who else might come out of the weeds. But as of
Sure.
now, on the council side, besides Councillor Hillier, 10 have confirmed they're running again. Now,
Okay.
there's an interesting wrinkle here because, as you may remember, the ward boundaries are going to be different for this election.
Mm-hmm.
They're largely pretty similar with some larger changes. And some of the interesting wrinkles in that is that, you may have a situation where incumbent councillors are running against each other. Haven't been able to confirm any of that so far, but, for example, Ward 1 will swallow up Old East Village as of next election, and Councillor Hadley McAllister, who represents Ward 1 right now, confirms he intends to run for Ward 1.
Okay.
Councillor Susan Stevenson, who represents Old East Village right now, on the other hand, said
Right.
she hasn't really decided where she wants to run.
Okay.
So we'll see what
We'll
comes out
see.
there.
Could be an interesting election season.
Exactly. And one more was Councillor Corinne Rahman, who represents Ward 7 right now. Uh, she told me that because of the boundary changes, she'll actually be in a new Ward 5, and she intends to run there.
Okay.
And the current Ward 5 councillor, Jerry Pribble, uh, declined comment about whether he intends to run. He said he wants to wait and have a chat with his family in the new year and over the holiday period.
Okay.
So already some interesting nuggets coming out, but
Yeah.
still quite a few key details to confirm there.
Sure. Yeah, fair enough. Okay. We're talking about the mayor, and speaking of Mayor Josh Morgan, he actually has the power to veto some of the councilors' amendments, council's amendments for this budget, because again, the budget has not been officially, confirmed and voted on. Uh, does he plan to veto anything? How does that work? And has he ever vetoed anything before?
So far he is not. And
Okay.
just to take a step back, the whole budget process on a city level was completely overhauled by the strong mayor powers that the province brought in a couple years ago. So
Mm-hmm.
now it's the mayor's directive to bring in the budget that council can make changes to. That's what the talks were on Thursday. And if they so desire, mayors have the ability to veto any changes council makes to his budget. Mayor Josh Morgan hasn't done that yet, generally because most of the budgets have been pretty close to what he's presented anyway.
Okay.
They haven't strayed too far or made any super controversial changes. And that was the case this year. He told me in a scrum after Thursday's talks that he supported most of the changes that came in, and again, he hasn't vetoed anything so far. So
Mm-hmm.
I believe the quote was, Londoners can envision where he goes with that, but he wants to reserve the right, God forbid, in case of any big changes or theatrics at that
Sure.
last meeting.
Of
But
course.
it's not looking likely at this stage.
He sounds happy with where they're at now. Okay. All right. So let's just look ahead. When the budget is approved, and do we expect any more amendments? There could be some, but do you think there will be any?
It's not looking likely at this stage. Both council and city staffers really prefer to have any amendments, dealt with during these talks. There was a meeting on Thursday, and they set aside Friday if they needed,
Yeah.
which they didn't. They
Okay.
wrapped up on Thursday. It is technically possible for folks to bring stuff forward at the council meeting, the special one on the 26th. I think there's some procedural hurdles they have to get through in terms of, bringing forward something last minute and emergent.
Okay.
So, if anything were to come forward, it has an uphill battle a little bit, but
Right.
I think most of the substantive changes are done with. And,
Okay.
that's not surprising given that, the annual update, it's not nearly as drastic as writing a whole new 4-year budget. It's
Yeah.
mostly meant to just be tweaks.
Right. Okay. All right. Well, thank you, Jack. I know it's a busy time of year for you and for everybody at City Hall. You can go have a rest now. We're good. And thank you for joining us today.
Oh, I'm so glad to hear that. Thanks.
Yeah.